Very good evening, IB2 viewer, and welcome to Virtual Speakers Corner, episode 32. First of all, I would like to thank the students and the lecturer who were with us for giving their public speech for the Virtual Speaker Corners program, which has been scheduled on date 8 April 2021, which is the day on Thursday. My name is Thierry Maldini, as your moderator for Virtual Speakers Corner today. Before we start sharing today, let me introduce our handsome members. And our panel members is the student in Faculty of Agriculture and taking his programs in Bachelor of Plantation Management. His name is Hareeshkumar Kalaiselvan, and he is currently a first-year student. So the title of our panel will carry for this episode is Conventional Farming versus the Future of Farming. Dear Haresh, you may start.
Okay, thank you so much, Thierry, for giving me this opportunity. So, my name is Hareeshkumar, and the topic for today's talk will be about conventional farming versus the future of farming. So, in my opinion, I do think that agriculturists nowadays should move on from the conventional way of doing farming into the future way of doing farming. So, I have my reasons on why we should move on. So, 20 years back, we had an issue that the earth has a rising population. The population was rising very rapidly. That is because of the improved quality of life, improvement in the medical field, the innovation of new medicines, vaccines to fight the diseases, and people start to live longer than expected. And then the population also started to rise. It became a problem. So it has become an issue to feed all this population to ensure the food security. So in order to ensure the food security, we need to improve the quantity and also the quality of the agricultural yield. So what we did, there were several innovations in the scientific field regarding the agriculture. So example, in the technology fields, genetic engineering skills, and also the innovation of new fertilizers and new ways of doing farming. And also 20 years back, we had a very little awareness about the climate change. Everything that we did was not sustainable. It was polluting the environment, and we actually didn't have much awareness about climate change. But right now, what has stayed the same is the rising population. So right now we have around 7.8 billion people in this earth, and it's predicted that the population will increase to 10 billion people in 2050. So in order to feed those population, we need a new way of farming. So if we use the conventional way of farming, it will be more polluting and we will also hurt the planet. But the one thing that changed from the 20 years back and now is the climate change, and it's happening. And the agriculturist actually has to take things in their hands, because we are at the tip of the iceberg, and if we don't do any changes right now, it could become a point of no return, because the scientists predicted that if the global temperature increases 1.5 degrees Celsius, we will go into a point of no return. And as we all know, the agricultural field is one of the biggest contributor to greenhouse gas emission. That's because we needed more land to do agriculture, so we clear up the forest. And if we clear up the forest, we are destroying the natural trees that convert the CO2 into oxygens. And also the agricultural waste, they produce an immense amount of methane gases into the atmosphere. So those are the greenhouse gases which causes the climate change. So right now, we need a culture to make the agriculture feel sustainable. We need to find a new way. So right now, one of the famous way of doing farming is the vertical farming. So in this talk, I'm going to highlight the differences between the conventional farming and also the vertical farming. So in conventional farming, the characteristics of conventional farming is the integration of technologies. We had advanced irrigation systems, heavy machineries, polluting heavy pesticides and herbicides, GPS systems, and also large acres of lands. But in vertical farming, it's quite different from the conventional farming. The use of water is very low. The use of land also is very low. We don't need any polluting machineries, heavy machineries, and then there are less pesticides or maybe no pesticides and herbicides being used at all. And the main advantage was that it can be done anywhere in the world. So first we go one by one. This is the characteristics of conventional farming, which is the integration of technologies and pesticides and herbicides. So, for example, we had hybrid seeds and hybrid plants. The biotechnology division has made some discovery in Malaysia because Malaysia is one of the biggest producers of oil palm. We had large oil palm plantations. So, what they did was to cross the Diora and Piscifera species to form a new species, which is Tenera, which gave us more quality oil and more quantity of palm oil and kernel oil. And then we had GMO. GMO stands for genetically modified organisms. So basically, genetic engineers, they alter the DNA of the plants so that they could grow faster. They have the higher quality, and also a single plant could produce a higher quantity of yield. So when we talk about the higher quality, some plants are they are genetically engineered so that they can resist the diseases, the common diseases, so that the plants have a higher quality of life, and then higher quantity also. And for example, the greenhouse method in Cameron Highlands, we can see it widely. So one of the advantages is that it can trap heat, and then it can form a greenhouse environment, which is more suitable for the plants to grow. And it also in greenhouse way, we can control the water being given to the plants. So basically, uh, plants need a certain amount of water to grow well. So when there are lots of water or there are very limited amount of water, they can grow well. So in greenhouse environment, we can actually control the water. And then the weedicides and pesticides will be highly effective in a greenhouse system because mostly when we spray weedicides or pesticides, and after that, around 1 or 2 hours when it rains, the weedicides and pesticides they mostly washed up to the soil, and it pollutes the soil, and it reduces the fertility of the soil. So when we have a greenhouse method, when we use the greenhouse method, we can control when we want to water the plant. So maybe after we spray the weedicides and pesticides, we can wait for a while and then water the plants. So it mostly we can say it's 100% effective. And then we have the soil management. So advancement in the chemistry field. So it leads to us to produce highly effective fertilizers. For example, the petrochemical fertilizers, which is the NPK, which the effect can be seen in just 2 or 3 days. They are very highly effective. And then the liming methods, we have the calculation on how to raise the pH of the soil to a suitable level using the liming methods. So these are innovations in the soil management field, soil science field. And then the pesticides and weedicides are one of the major breakthrough in the chemical field, in the chemistry field, because last times people they used to plug the weeds one by one. It's very labor intensive and energy intensive. So since the innovation of these pesticides and weedicides, it has become easier for the people, for the agriculturists. So just spray the weedicides and pesticides, and it's way more energy efficient. Also, it causes less. So moving on, we have the advanced irrigation systems and heavy machineries. So instead of spraying the plants with water, uh, people spraying the plants with water, we have the high power water pumps, which can spray a wide amount of land, which can cover a wide amount of land in such a small time. So it's one of the big innovations. And then we have the sprayers that attach to the tractors for spraying pesticides and weedicides. So we don't need physical labor actually. So we just can depend on the heavy machineries. And then we also have the state-of-art machineries. For example, you can see in this picture, we have dedicated machineries for planting paddy. And then for harvesting, we have a dedicated machinery. And then also for plowing. So in this way, conventional agriculture actually made things energy efficient. We don't need much labor and all that. but the thing is, it's not sustainable. And also, one of the characteristics of conventional farming is that it requires a large amount of land. So, in order to navigate those large amount of lands, we use the GPS systems. So, one of the characteristics are mostly the plantation is bigger than 100 hectares. So, in order to prepare to plant to make a plantation, we need a land clearing, we need leveling, we need to check for the soil fertility, and also determine the types of crops that we can actually plant in a certain environment. And also, we use the GPS navigation systems, which stands for Global Positioning Systems. So it makes the navigation easier in a very big wide plantations. So when you have the navigation system, the workers mostly know where to go and where to do certain jobs. So they don't get stuck in middle of somewhere and waste times. So it makes life easier, the management easier. So moving on, now we have the vertical farming. So one of the characteristics of vertical farming is that the low usage of water. So in vertical farming, the way the culture of doing agriculture is using the hydroponics and aeroponics system. So in hydroponics and aeroponics, we don't need a physical soil. So why we can use less water is because it just supply the plants with the necessary amount of water they needed. So in maybe in conventional farming, we spray lots of water on the plant, and then only some of the water are being absorbed by the roots of the plant, and most of them are being evaporated back to the atmosphere, and most of them lost into the soil. So, but in aeroponics and hydroponics, we just supply with the necessary amount of water needed. And then there are no wastage of water. Like in conventional farming, they're being evaporated into the atmosphere. But in here, there are no wastage because we only supply the necessary amount. And if the plants they doesn't use that much of water, it flows back into the system and being recycled. And one of the advantage in hydroponics and aeroponics is that all the we doesn't need to fertilize the plant one by one. All the nutrients that are needed are being mixed in the solution. So it really saves time because uh, we just do one method, which is irrigation, and it involves everything. So all the nutrients are available for the plant are available in the irrigation system. So the second thing is that vertical farming they uses less land. So for example, we can see in this picture, there are many levels. Maybe you can see 5 or 6 levels. So since there are no need for the soil, so we can actually build how many levels you want according to the capacity of the warehouse or the environment we are building it. And it also doesn't need direct sunlight, and we can use artificial sunlight, which is we use LED bulbs. And one of the advantages is that in LED bulbs we can control the wavelength of the sunlight needed by the plants. So some of the plants they do photosynthesis at a certain wavelength of the light, so we can just straight away supply the wavelength so that they can grow faster and have a higher quality. So we can take Singapore as an example. So they have a very less land. The land is very limited for the country, but they can ensure their food security for more than 50 years because uh, they are adopting the vertical farming system. And in also in vertical farming, there are less labor needed. Mostly in vertical farming, they use technologies such as robots. Uh, those robots, maybe in the plantation or in the conventional farming, they can't navigate easier because of the road. They can. It's very huge and it's really hard for them to navigate. But in vertical farming, uh, they are built so that the robots can navigate easier, and also the robots can work 24/7. Unlike people, they can only work half a day maybe, and they get tired. And then we can save lots of land. So, example, we can see here there are 5 levels. If we do the same thing in a conventional farming, maybe we need more than 5 times of this land needed for vertical farming. So, in this way, we can actually avoid deforestation. And since we are combating the climate change, it's really important to avoid deforestation. And also, when you have when we adapt the system, there will be so much land to be spared, and we can actually plant them with trees. And also, there are no polluting machineries or polluting pesticides and weedicides. Since all the works are done by mostly the human intervention is very low, all the works are done by the robots. So it uses electricity rather than in conventional farming. We use diesel powered machineries, which they burn diesel and produces carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and also nitrous oxide into the atmosphere. So usage of electric robots is very important because the government can actually ensure how the way the electric is being produced. So it's mainly to the government initiatives. And also we can there are no place for weed in vertical farming because we use hydroponics and aeroponics. There are no soil, so mostly weeds grow on the soil. So when there's no soil, so there's no weed, and also there's no external medium such as the wind or the animals to bring in the weed seeds actually. So in this way, we can avoid using the weed sites which pollutes the environment. Also, the production of weed sites are mainly dependent on the petroleum industry. So when we use less weed sites, the petroleum extraction process will be also low. So there'll be less carbon dioxide or methane being produced into the atmosphere. And also, there are no needs for pesticides also because pesticides are mainly for the pests. So the vertical farming is basically in a closed environment. So the pests can't enter actually. So we doesn't need any pesticides to combat the pests. And as I said, the main advantage of the vertical farming is that it can be done anywhere with the technological integration. So what I mean by anywhere on the planet is that we can do it in a desert or in the Arctic environment, and we can also plant some tropical plants in a temperate region because the environment is totally artificially controlled, and uh, there are no soil required, no sunlight, and less water. So, for example, we are doing a vertical farming in the desert. So the amount of water available in the desert is very low. So when we use this vertical farming, so like I said, the usage is 95% lower than a conventional farming. So we can create a agriculture field or agriculture system in a desert using less water, which is impossible in a conventional way of doing farming. And the integration of technology. So the mostly nowadays the vertical farmings are fully managed by the artificial intelligence. So those artificial intelligence has a higher level of observation. They can observe the plants 24/7 and they can collect data. And whenever the plants doesn't grow well, so uh, that's where the human intervention comes. So we can actually set on what to do with the plants and all that. So that and the AI actually they learn on how to do the farming. So as the time goes on, they have a higher level of knowledge, and at some point of time, maybe we don't need human intervention at all, and they can manage it by themselves. And in this way, they can also provide a higher quality of yield. uh, for example, they learn faster than a human. So the next time when they do the same thing, they can make things right, right? So it can improve the yield at a faster rate compared to the human. So I do think that the agriculturists should move on from the conventional way of farming into the future way of farming right now because uh, this is the right time and we can't be late, right? So maybe it costs a lot at the first, but as we see the long term, it's really good. So thank you everyone for listening to me.
Thank you, Haresh, for an interesting topic just now. Hopefully, the listeners can take advantage of the knowledge that has been presented clearly with the aids of these colorful infographics. So that I hope the viewers are all aware that we have to move, uh, we have to we have to take out this awareness about this future farming method in order to sustain our lives in the future. So we have coming to the end with, to the end of the virtual speakers corner session today. So hope to see you again on Tuesday next week. with solid information for all to see. I would like to thank once again to the panel and the listeners, as well as request to close our knowledge gathering today. Thank you so much. Pertanian,
Thank
good
you.
luck. Bye.